pick up where I left off with Dr. Luden. I had asked her to manage the pain. She said, I need you to come back to establish care with Dr. Gavari. And then Dr. Gavari basically got recorded yelling and screaming and not doing an evaluation, not doing any type of physical exam. She never put her hands on me. Never asked one single diagnostic question. Where's your pain? How long have you been bleeding? I referenced the bleeding. She was just firing questions at me right in my face. I mean, she was literally inches from me. And I identified myself as autistic. I asked her if she understood what the I mean, she really got nasty when I mentioned the ADA and reasonable accommodation and all of that. So fast forward, Dr. Scott got recorded not telling me about the tumor, which actually kind of paid off in a way because I didn't know I had the tumor in order to falsely assert these symptoms, which we now know were from the tumor, in order for anybody to say there was malingering or anything else. An attorney named Ruth O'Neill lived next to the shelter where I was staying. It was a Catholic shelter, charity shelter where I was working. And after I had to quit my job because the pain was too bad, and being autistic, when you're in that, just pain where you're shaking and you're crying, you can't be expected to perform a 9-point political fundraising where you have to cover certain things. There's so many rules you have to be right with it. Anybody who wasn't autistic with this crippling pain and bleeding wouldn't have been able to perform. My employees were looking at me when I was just trying to walk after setting, and I could barely walk because the pain it's basically up in the crotch and down the front of the legs and up under, your rear end, because that's where the uterus is. Attorney Ruth O'Neill started interviewing me about what was going on with the doctors and the ERs and what the ER doctor told me. He said I had a couple eggs stuck. He didn't tell me what was going on. But they provided like sanitary napkins and all that stuff there. And I was constantly needing them. I lost my job. I had to quit, basically medical leave, but nobody would fill out the medical leave paperwork. So with them being very flexible, I let them know that I'll come back when I find a doctor who can treat autism and we get this bleeding and this, whatever this pelvic pain was diagnosed that was causing the fevers and is what we now know to be uterine swelling that was pressing on that nerve, though nobody told me that at the time, even though one of the emergency room documents prior to me getting the real diagnosis said that I had pain in the left buttock and there's swelling there that Beth Sweeney said was from the uterine swelling. So I went over this with attorney Ruth O'Neill. I needed to audit University of Missouri. I had no pain management, and per most persons with autism, when we are overwhelmed, especially with sensory overload, and you yank us out of our routine, which was me not having a job, not knowing how I was going to get proper medical care. Nobody was telling me the truth about what was going on with me. The pain was absolutely so disorienting that I almost got hit by a car because I couldn't, with the sensory overload and the pain, it was just, I was having what we call a meltdown, which we now know to be a form of seizures. Though it's not like Grand Mal, anything that a seizure medication is really going to help with too much. You really got to deal with whatever environment, the overstimulating, whatever it is, whether it be the pain or the bleeding symptoms, the noise, the structure with the schedule, all of that has to be dealt with. It's not something you just throw a pill at and it fixes it. You can medicate it all you want to. If you don't deal with a rupturing uterine tumor that's causing crippling pain, the autistic person is still, and you can authenticate that by watching Temple Grandin's lectures about parents who complain about, their kids are going, my kid's having a meltdown, he's at home, he's safe, he's not having there's no sensory overload, and Temple Grandin immediately says, look for underlying pain issues. Look for teeth, upset stomach. That can cause a meltdown in an autistic person. I self-inflicted by cutting on my ankle because that sends all of the information to that one easily managed area. I ended up in University of Missouri emergency room. Instead of them, and I told them why I cut, because I have all this pain in my crotch, and it was affecting my ability to work. It was affecting my ability to sit. He said, what did they say at Boone? I said, they didn't tell me. They said there was a couple of eggs stuck, but they didn't ultimately tell me what was on the ultrasound. Instead of sending for Boone's records and going, oh crap, you have a uterine tumor. Let's get you referred to a proper doctor, since your other two doctors got recorded being abusive and falsified the medical records. And the other doctor got recorded not telling you the truth and not really sending you to a referral. Let's remedy this and get you. And all they would have had to do was say, we got you. And it would have fixed everything. But instead they have somebody come in and read me my rights and do an unnecessary committal, because I told this kid doctor, kid shrink, who came in saying, I want you to take Risperdal. I said, I'm not taking Risperdal. I don't take patented drugs for kickbacks so that you can beef up your bottom line. What I need is a referral to a GYN to find out what's causing all this pain and all this bleeding. And that will remedy it. Instead, they read me my rights and falsely incarcerate me in their what's called NUPC. I tried to contact the attorney that they assigned me. That attorney wasn't even in town. I said, I need an attorney who's actually going to return my phone calls and who's actually in town. That attorney never returned the phone calls. What I ended up recording, because I usually keep extra phones, and I have double D's, so it's real easy to hide them. What I ended up recording was them refusing to make any referrals for the bleeding or the pelvic pain, the fevers, anything that was causing the meltdowns. What I recorded was them basically saying, you can get into a staff member's private vehicle and we'll take you out to the truck stop and you can find your way out of town. Basically mean hitchhike out of town. Now I'm autistic, no money, bleeding nonstop. The pain is so crippling that I can go into a hyposensitive mode and function in spite of it. But there was no, the thing of it is, all they had to do, but they wrote down that there was no issues. The wound was already severely infected, already had a MRSA infection in it. But they falsified the medical records and said that I had a friend who was going to be sending me a bus ticket. I went over how, and even Ruth O'Neill could see how they listed no medical problems, didn't need any referrals to any medical doctors, and then I had somebody was supposed to be sending me a bus ticket. The person that they listed in Tucson, Arizona, is an investigator who investigates human trafficking. I promise you, she knows that I never asked her for a bus ticket. I was still so horribly overwhelmed from the pain and the fact that nobody was giving me proper referrals to a GYN, and I was recording all of it, that Ruth O'Neill was like, Heather, nobody's going to treat you. You've got them on criminal violations. One of the other people there who was staying at Will Spray House says, why isn't anybody treating you? And I said, it's because I'm blowing the whistle on them falsifying medical records, not making proper referrals, costing me my job. And they're basically committing COBRA violations and TALA violations and criminal violations. So I'll pick this up, the rest of my conversation with Ruth.